work in a retail store. Not gonna say where or the name. We sell sports merchandise and jerseys. Pretty usual customers. Lots of teenagers in the mall at lunch break. Older men who like to talk about old players from their childhood. The occasional immigrant I can't really communicate with, so I smile and nod. My usual shifts are in the mornings from opening to 2 p.m. when someone else takes over. I usually work alone for the most of my shift, until the next person comes in within an hour left of my shift. Mondays are the only days I close. I'm there from 5 until closing at 9 alone, desperately seeking entertainment. Usually I can stream a sports game on my phone since the store becomes pretty dead after 7, and the mall is almost silent by 8. Last Monday was like any other. I showed up for my shift, took over from the last guy, and walked around the store for 3 hours. At 8, I went behind the counter to watch a basketball game. About 20 minutes later, a guy walked in and started looking around. I walked over to him and gave him my usual pinch, just letting him know about some sales and discounts we have. He didn't even look at me. After a moment of silence, I just said, "Let me know when you have any questions or need any help." And with that, I went back to the counter, keeping an eye on him without being too obvious. This guy made me feel pretty uncomfortable. I've had to deal with some uncomfortable customers in the past. Angry people, a couple of drunks, and one of our customers have dementia. This guy just made me uneasy, but I can't explain why. After an uncomfortably long browsing of the store, the man started to walk out. I called out for him to have a nice night and take care. He turned to look at me for the first time. First thing I noticed was his eyes. They were big, pupils dilated and very focused on me. I felt his stare like a beam and this made me squirm. He didn't say anything, just stared. Eventually he left and disappeared out of view into the almost empty mall. I thought of calling mall security, but the mall was about to close by then and it wasn't a huge concern. 9 o'clock came around finally and I got ready to close. I shut the gate halfway and went to get my jacket from the back and turned off the lights. As I was walking to close the gate, I saw him standing off to one side. I nervously began to close the gate and duck under. As soon as my back faced towards him, I heard him move. I turned around to see him running full sprint towards me. I quickly ducked back under and slammed the gate down. He was trying to pull it back up while trying to reach to and grab my jacket. I couldn't lock the gate from the inside, so I reached for a pole that I had used to pull the gate down and jammed it in at the top, so that the gate couldn't be lifted. I backed up from the gate so he couldn't touch me, and that's when I got a better look at him. His eyes were even wider than before, and even crazier. His mouth was twisted into a sick grin. He was snarling like a rabid animal and gnashing his teeth. I dashed to the counter to get the number for security. I called and no one picked up. My next thought was to call the police. They told me they'd be there shortly and to stay somewhere safe. I stayed behind the counter, watching the man try to get in from the gate. After what felt like forever, I heard the police shouting down from the hall at the man. He turned to the voices and looked back at me before turning and running in the opposite direction. The stare he gave me before he left was pure hatred and chilled me to my core. 2 officers chased the man while one stayed back to talk to me. I removed the pole from the gate and let him in. After I told him what had happened, he escorted me to my car. The man was arrested later that evening. They found him in the forest near the mall, living in a makeshift shelter and basic belongings, as well as merchandise he had stolen from the mall. He had been living there for the summer months and regularly visited the mall at night. Other mall employees had filed complaints, but security could only escort him out. I told my manager what had happened, but since he was locked up, there was no risk of him returning to the mall. I still don't like to work alone, especially my evening shifts. I usually try to keep as busy as possible, or call someone, but I still keep myself watching nervously for his twisted face lurking outside the store. When you work in security, you might get moved around a lot, but normally I work nights, and I'm a regular in one building. I've recently been put in charge of reading over the site logs for other buildings too. It's pretty boring most of the time, but I got $1 per hour pay raise out of it, so I can hardly complain. All a site log is a registry of everything that happened on a particular shift. It's normally just patrols. Maybe a bit of damage a guard has noticed. A kid hanging about here or there. Nothing too exciting. A few things make a log more difficult to get through. Terrible penmanship is the worst one. But another issue is that many guards don't speak or write great English, and it's difficult for them to concisely explain events. You'll learn to get by the guesswork. One guy was always hard to understand. His name was Sa. He was African and a good guard, but even in person, it was a struggle to understand him, and forget about reading his reports. They were always a headache, but I liked the bloke and managed them as well as I could. Sa mostly worked the night at one particular city office building. Nowhere special, just a regular place with cubicles and drinking fountains, and people who hated their jobs. It was pretty cushy though. He had a booth office all to himself with a heating and radio, and cameras of high enough quality that patrols were not necessary. He just had to chill in the booth and keep an eye on the monitors. About 4 days ago, Sa started noting a problem in his reports. Every time I read through them, it said the same thing. 2000. On site, all okay. 2200. 2000. On site, all okay. 2200. Meal break. 2300. Speak button scratch scratch again. 205. Hallway again. 0300. Hallway gone. 0800. Sa off-site duty. After seeing this in the reports a few times, I called Sa to get some clarification. First, I asked him about speak button scratch scratch. He told me that every night, scratch scratch on the speaker button back door. I asked him if he meant the intercom round the back of the building. Yes, every night scratch noise, very bad. I figured he meant that the intercom was playing up. Probably picking up some kind of static. I made a note to report it and get it fixed. I asked him about the hallway again, and he was quiet for some time. What's wrong with the hallway, Sa? Hallway camera. Every night something, same time. What's something? What do you mean? Camera get big black spot. It's moving up camera hallway. Like dirt on camera. No, moving spot. Arms and legs, something inside. Okay. It sounds like some kind of distortion. It could be messing up when people walk down the hallway. I'll report it. No people, just me. First day 1 camera. Now 1-2 camera, a closer hallway. Sa was starting to confuse me and I was tired. I decided to just request a tech to look at all the cameras. I told them I would get it sorted out. I'm pretty sure the tech went out the next day. When I got that night report, It said the same. Speak button, scratch scratch. Hallway again. This went on for a couple more days, until my night off. About 6 p.m., my boss calls me. Saw didn't rock up for work. He needs me to go in and cover. I'm relatively familiar with that particular building and I could use the money, so I go in. I start the night off by looking over the night before's report. I hadn't seen it yet, and it would save me doing it later. Saw had been working. 2000, saw on site. 2200, meal break. 2300, speak button, scratch scratch whisper. 205, hallway again, 3 camera closer. 0800, no more, saw off duty. A logbook is spotted with drops of water, and Saw has dug the pen in so hard on the last few sentences that it's ripped the paper. I'm concerned and call his phone. He answers. No shift, he says immediately. No more work, another building. We can move you, Saw. I can handle this place for a bit. Saw is quiet again. You are there tonight? Yes, Saw. I can cover your shifts. He hangs up. I try to call back, baffled and thinking his phone must have cut out, but he doesn't answer. I decide just to talk to the boss about it tomorrow. I settle in with my snacks, a book, and all of Reddit to browse over the long shift. My phone buzzes. It's a text from Saw. Go home. That's it. Nothing else. I try to call him again and he doesn't pick up. I'm a little concerned for his health, thinking he's having some kind of breakdown. Or maybe is sleep deprived. It happens a lot when you're doing such long, late shifts. We try to be vigilant about it. Again, I decide it's just best to bother the boss with it tomorrow and settle in. It's been a few easy hours, and nothing much has happened. The building is emptied out. The cleaners have finished, and the underappreciated cubicle staff have finally done enough unpaid overtime. I get to be as chill as I want now. The intercom rings. It won't be staff at this hour. The building is right in the city, so it's probably just stupid teenagers out late playing silly buggers. I click the speak button.
Can I help you?
Nothing.
Hello?
Soft scratching, like somebody running their nails lightly over the speaker. It sounds nothing like static. I figure it's just some weird fault and hang up. When I log it, I notice it's 11 p.m. The exact same time Saw experienced the issue. This actually reassures me. Everything in the booth is connected and on a timer system, so that the system knows when to auto-lock doors and arm alarms. If it always happens at the same time, it's probably just a technical glitch. I noted it all down and go back to looking at pictures of cats. I remind myself to look closely at the cameras at 2 a.m. to see if they're still faulting too. The time comes. I'm staring at the monitors. Then, I catch it. Hallway cam 001. It's in the hallway that leads down from the rear door to the front lobby of the building, where my booth is located. The hallway has 3 cameras along it because it has several sharp corners. There's also a PTZ, a pan, tilt, zoom. You can control these kind of cameras with the joystick and look around. At first, it looks like a bug or something on the screen. Just a little dark smudge. Slowly, it starts growing. Not growing. moving forward. The black smug, he moves closer and closer to the camera. It moves very slowly. It's so indistinct. I have no idea what it could be. I watch it get slowly closer to the first turn in the hallway. After an hour, it moves out of the hallway. I look over the hallway camera too. Nothing. I'm not the panicky type. I didn't hear anything. No alarms were triggered, and the cameras do weird stuff sometimes. I decided it has to be some kind of fault. I pull the footage from hallway 1 and rewind back to 0205. The black smudge is there. I play it back and forth a few times, but can see nothing else. I extract the footage and put it on my desktop. I figure I can show it to the techs when I call them about it and actually fix this. The rest of the night is uneventful. I get some reading done and OD on Red Bull. Come 8 AM, my relief shows up. I hang back 10 minutes for the building manager to come in too. I tell him we need to get the techs back out here and look at the intercom and hallway camera. I pull up the footage to show him. There's no smudge. The hallway looks normal. Just an hour-long recording of nothing. I don't understand. I played back the footage fine that night. It was there only hours ago. I explain a much to the BM. Maybe you ripped the version of the wrong date. Or maybe you named it wrong. This stuff happens. I'll still get the techs in here and we'll sort it out. I decided to blame it on tiredness and head home to bed. I had another shift that night in the same building. I slept and came back at 8, went through all the same monitors. 11 PM came. The intercom buzzed, scratching again, louder this time, more insistent. I was confused and maybe a little scared. The techs were meant to have fixed this for sure. It occurred to me that it might be the work of some dedicated pranksters. I pressed the talk button down.
You kids better beg her off. I don't have a problem calling the cops.
The scratching stopped. I figured I had solved that mystery. I went back to killing time. 2 AM came. I didn't immediately look at the cameras this time. Why bother staring at a glitch? If it was even still playing up. A few minutes in, the movement still caught my eye. I looked up at hallway 1, and the smudge was back. It seemed to move a bit faster this time. I watched it glide down the hallway. It left the first camera's line of sight again. I figured that it was for another night. It wasn't. Hallway 2 flickered with motion, and the smudge was there. Now, I felt uncomfortable. PTZ's line of sight stretched to hallway 2. I decided to use it. I swung it around in that direction of the smudge. It was there. A lump formed in my throat and my stomach felt heavy. What was it? Part of me wanted to get up, leave the booth and look down the hallway, trying to make sense of this. The other part of me said, screw that. I twisted the top of the PTZ joystick, engaging the zoom function. I zoomed into the smudge. My stomach leapt into my throat. I tasted bile and lost my breath. The smudge was deep blackness, but it flickered with something. I looked closer. I was shaking like a leaf, but I didn't want to look away from the thing on the screen. It had arms and legs, and faces. Not in any logical places, and not at all showing up at any one time. Just flickering of limbs and eyes moving at incredible speed. Almost vibrating. I couldn't comprehend it. My brain just emptied itself and rejected what I was looking at. I felt frozen in place, staring at it. I don't know how long I stared as it came closer and closer to the end of hallway 2. Closer to me. It reached the end of hallway 2. Suddenly, I was aware again. I felt movement come back to my limbs and I sprung up and locked the door to my booth. I sat low in a corner, hidden from outside view. I clutched my phone and I stared at hallway 3. I waited for that impossible thing to show up on the screen. It didn't. I looked at the time. 3 a.m. It was gone. I studied every camera and nothing. I couldn't bring myself to go over the footage again. I just sat at the desk wondering what to do. Who do you call for something like that? Am I going crazy? Maybe I was sleep deprived now. It was 8 a.m. again before I knew it. I only tore myself away from my thoughts as the sun started shining on my face through the glass front door. It made me feel safe. Whatever that thing was, whether it's real or not, it was coming closer. I'm supposed to work again tonight. What do I do? Update. So, last night I asked my boss to get someone else to cover my night shift. He said if I could go in and work till 10 p.m. he'd send Jacob in. Perfect. Nothing weird happens until 11. So I won't have to experience anything terrifying. Excellent. I got in at 8 p.m. I sorted out my normal duties, which took about an hour. Then, I decided it was time to look at the footage of Sa's last shift. I opened up the right date and time in our playback program. I watched the shift from 8 p.m. onwards at high speed. Sa came in looking nervous. He sat at the desk, fiddling, pacing, looking around. It got to 2300 and I saw him answer the intercom. The booth camera is in a corner about 3 meters from the booth. I couldn't see his face too well, but what I saw from his body language, he was upset. I saw him scribble in the logbook and look around nervously. He locked the door of the booth from inside. I sped forward till 2:05 a.m. and Sa sat at the desk, hands gripping the edge tight. Sa sat at the desk, hands gripping the edge tightly. He stared at the camera monitor. He barely moved. His hands moved to his cheeks. He looked to be digging his fingers in hard. Still, he stared at the monitor. I sped through till about 3 a.m. A cold wave of terror hit me. The thing was just outside the booth, and Sa still stared at the monitor. He slowly looked behind him, confused. He looked back at the monitor. He looked directly at the camera. He looked back and forth in confusion for about 5 minutes. He walked to the door of the booth, staring now through the glass, directly where that thing was. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. Stark realization hit me. At night, Sa had called me. I thought nothing of it at the time. We were both working that night. I figured he wanted to ask a question or something. I had picked up the phone that night and said hello. But there was no answer and he had hung up. I remember thinking he pocket dialed me or something. I saw Sa hang up in the footage. As soon as he did, the thing was gone. He sat back at the desk and stared straight ahead for the next 5 hours of his shift, and then went home. I couldn't comprehend what I saw. I don't understand what's happening. By the time I finished watching, Jacob had arrived. I bid him good night and a silent good luck. This afternoon I went back by there. Jacob had reported seeing nothing odd in his log. However, I happen to know that Jacob sleeps through the great majority of his shifts, so that may not be a surprise. I had wanted to talk to the cleaners. Today, 2 regular people were on. A lady in her 40s named Janice, and a younger Eastern European bloke called Danko. I talked to Janice first. She said she had never noticed anything strange and that they didn't work late at night there anymore. I asked her why. She said Danko used to, but had wanted to change his hours. That motivated me to talk to Danko too. He wasn't very forthcoming with information, but he eventually told me that he had changed the daytime hours because he didn't like working in a near-empty building. That made him uncomfortable. I asked him why, and he told me that there was no particular reason, that he had nothing more to say about it. As I said goodbye and turned to leave, he called out to me. "You can smell it. You can feel it. Run when you do." I snapped around and asked him what he meant. He told me he had said nothing and went back to emptying his bins. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Some people asked me to draw a picture of what I saw. I'm no artist, and this is nowhere near as frightening as the real, moving and flickering thing I saw on the camera. But I've done what I can. It's 11:30 p.m. and I'm making my nightly rounds, making sure all doors are locked before I start my nightly cleaning routine. I am a janitor at one of the many Gold's gyms. This Gold gym is hidden from the road enough to where the doors aren't too visible from the highway. I won't lie. It kinda creeps me out sometimes working here alone until 3 a.m. So I always bring headphones to listen to music. I also make sure to leave all the lights on and have weapons hidden in each room as I clean. I'm minding my own business, mopping the main floor by the front desk and getting ready to turn my music on. That's when I hear a loud bang on the glass. I look up and see nothing. I feel chills. The windows show nothing but a pitch black night sky. I shake my head and go to press play, but then more banging. This time it's louder. I run to the front of the gym to see a man. He is pressed against the window staring at me. He is dressed in a hoodie and sweatpants. He looks to be in his 30s. His eyes look bloodshot, like he's exhausted. "Sorry, we're closed. Sorry, we're closed," I say nervously. I try to show that I'm not scared, but my heart is pounding a little fast. "I left my gym shoes," he says flatly. "You'll have to come back tomorrow," I say. He stands there and doesn't say anything. Moments go by and I feel like an idiot just standing there. A creepy smirk creeps across his face. "Have a good night," he says a little too happily. He walks off into the darkness, and I shake my head and tell myself to calm down. I decide it's best not to play music. I need to make sure this man really left. I, being a man myself, know I am a pretty strong guy. But this guy looks built. It honestly freaks me out, but I start cleaning again. There's nothing to be... I hear a loud bang come from the back of the gym. I feel my breath catch my throat. I hear it again, louder this time. I take deep breaths as I reach for my mace. I slowly make my way to the back door, and I hear a constant banging as I grow closer. The back door is solid metal and sturdy. I know it's locked, but I can can see the vibrations with each bang. What makes it even creepier is, I swear I hear snarling and growling. I put my hand on the door and hold the mace up with the other. Just then, the banging stops. Go away, or I will call the police. I managed to choke out. I hear a man's laugh.
They can't save you.
He groans. I run away from the door as quickly as I can to the manager's office. I lock myself into the room and grab my phone to dial 911. Just as it starts ringing, the power to the gym goes off. I let out a huge gasp.
911, what's your emergency?
A woman says from the other line.
Please help me. Someone is trying to break into the gym.
I think he just broke in.
Okay, sir. I need you to stay calm. Where are you located?
She asks. As I start to reply, I hear footsteps outside the door. I get down behind the desk next to me.
4123 Southern Plaza off Brook Road.
I whisper.
Okay, sir. Just stay on the line. Cops are on their way.
She says assuringly. I start to reply when laughter comes from the other side of the door.
I can smell you. You smell so scared.
A rusky voice bellows. I gulp. Sweat is pouring down my forehead at this point.
Sir, are you there?
The 911 operator asks.
Yes.
I whisper.
The cops won't make it by the time I get through this door.
The voice yells. Please, you can take anything you want. Just leave me alone. I yell, trying to sound non-frightened. I grip the mace close to me and look around for a weapon in case I have to fight.
You know, you're right. I think I will let this be a warning. When you least expect it, I will find you and I will come for you. It could be at your house in the quiet neighborhood, the place where you go to play cards every Friday, or here, where you're all alone every night, 6 days a week.
I can't catch my breath as I realize this man has been stalking me. Who are you? I yell. The man laughs devilishly.
You will see in time.
I hear footsteps getting fainter. Then I hear cop sirens in the background. I hang up the cell phone. I don't come up from under the desk until a cop busts down the door. When they lead me out, I see the front window shattered. I tell them everything and they take it all down. They suggest that I go nowhere alone and always have a weapon on me. I proceeded to take it a step further. I now have moved, changed jobs, and my weekly routine. I will take no chances. Lately, though, I swear I hear howling and evil laughter from the woods by my new place. I am considering relocating again. Hey everyone, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and hit that bell notification if you haven't. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and even donate to my Patreon if you're feeling generous. Thank you.